This is INCRadio, DCEM 954, the voice of truth, the official radio station of the Church of Christ or Iglesianicristo.
Welcome to How You Doin, a health and wellness podcast from INCRadio New York Satellite Studio. Whether you're on the go or taking a minute to breathe, we've got real tips, good conversations, and weekly check-ins to help you live well without losing your city pace. Are you ready? Let's get to it.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to everyone tuning in. Welcome to How You Doing. I missed everyone. I feel like I'm rarely here anymore, but I am here. And again, welcome back to How You Doing, where we talk about health and wellness in real and practical ways that fit into our everyday busy life, right? So as you all know, our goal is to help all of us understand our bodies, our habits, and make sure that we make choices that matter. And of course, that helps us reach, that health and wellness goal that we have, right? So today we are going to be talking about, like you've seen in our title on YouTube, the checkups and numbers that really matters, right? So these are going to be simple ways to stay on top of our health, whether you're in your 20s, 30s, 40s, and beyond. Okay. And with me discussing this topic are my co-hosts. Hi, Sister Abby and Brother Christian. Hello, hello, hello.
Good
Hello.
morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. How y'all doing today?
Cold. It's cold now.
It's
I'm
hot
not
here.
ready
It
for
actually
it.
it actually snowed here in the city, so like towards Long Island City area. Yeah, there was snow this morning. I saw it as I was driving by, so pretty interesting. I was like, wow, we're in that season. It's getting really cold now.
I know. Okay. Well, I was gonna ask. Well, Brother Lance in Rochester, they had snow like a couple of months ago.
Oh no, he's seen the bears, the deers, like that's been out since like January. So
January this
brother,
year.
brother,
They
brother
never
Lance,
left.
if you're watching this,
All
but
right,
anyways.
thank you. We'll introduce our special guest, our resource person, a little bit later on, just to keep that suspense for all of you who are tuning in. So, right now, we are going to discuss our question of the day for all of you who are tuning in, especially our Teen YouTube live chat. We would like to hear a lot from you. The question is, what is one checkup or screening that you would like to know more about? If you have any questions about that, and now is the perfect time to ask, okay? So that we can all learn something new that will help us, stay on top of our um, health and screening game. All right. So, Brother Christian, what else do we have on for today?
If Quia Tech can play our Where You At bumper. Where you at? Where you at? That's right. That's our segment. Where you at? All right. So, in this part, as we all know, this is your chance to represent your local congregation. So, make sure and I'm just going to go over the rules again because I know we're used to this already. We've been doing this for 15, 14 episodes now. So, we should get this in this far in season 1. But remember that we will count each person from your local congregation, extension, or group worship service that comments or answers a question or gives a shout out. So make sure you do all those 3 throughout the show. And don't forget to include your name and your local congregation. And remember, we are not doing the hashtags. So, I see people do the hashtags, but remember, we don't do those anymore. So no more spamming that, but just do your name and your local congregation. And the local with the most entries will win. And, you have the entire episode to do this. And from last week, the top local congregation was Bronx. So congratulations to the local congregation of Bronx. And the top CFO that was commenting for Where You At is, can anyone guess? Sister Mika, Sister Abby. Do you
The
think
most
which
active CFO, duh.
is it?
Book
What
load.
the yeah, the book club. So congratulations to the book club for being so active in our Where You At um segment last week. So I'm gonna give the floor to Sister Abby for our main topic. What do we have today? I'm so excited.
Yes. So I wait most of the way to topic, I guess. So today we are diving into a topic that every single one of us needs. Yes, really needs to pay attention to. We are talking about checkups and numbers that really matter. Because, here's the truth. In a world full of trends, supplements, and health advice coming from every direction, the most powerful thing you can do for your well being is staying on top of a few essential screenings and a handful of life saving numbers. So, we're going to break it down. The must have screenings you should keep on your calendar and give you a clear guide to preventative care so you know exactly what you need to focus on in your 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, and beyond. So, this is the episode all about empowering you with practical tools to take control of your health starting today. So, let's dive into it. So, we have a very special guest. So, hello, Brother Brian. Can you kindly introduce yourself, what you do, and local congregation and all that good stuff?
All right. Well, good morning, everyone. Good afternoon, good evening. Depends where y'all tuning from. Well, thanks for having me. Well, I'm Brian. Originally from San Diego, California, so I got to shout out National City District, San Diego. But I made my way to Brisbane, Queensland, Australia, and then New Orleans, Louisiana, South Central States. So I got to shout them out as well. But I'm currently in Staten Island, New York City. So I'm assigned here. I'm a resident physician at Richmond Medical Center. I'm also a behavioral therapist by trade and a personal trainer, nutrition coach, and educator as well. So I'm glad to be here to educate people and get people informed, in tune with their own health, and to live a better life.
Well, thank you, Brother Brian. We appreciate you joining on our show, and I know you're going to give us a lot of knowledge. If you have any questions, you can hit us up, and we can, in the comment section or in the YouTube live chat, and we can answer them throughout the show. But first question: why are regular screenings and basic health tracking important, even though we may feel like we're healthy?
Yeah, sometimes I have patients that come in and be like, Doc, do I really need to come into the clinic? I feel fine. So, but, I always tell them, like, sometimes you might not feel the symptoms at first, but slowly as you age, it kind of creeps on you. So definitely good to know where you're at, especially, time flies. And as we age, our body just really can't keep up. So in terms of pressure or your sugar, cholesterol as well. You can't really, quantify or kind of feel like, oh, hey, I feel like my blood pressure is around 165. It's like, no, that doesn't work like that. So you kind of have to regularly come to a clinic, or even just do basic things like checking at home. So just being proactive with your own health. So
What things we should kind of keep an eye on, like at home? Like, what are some basic screenings that we can do at home to kind of keep an eye on?
yeah, so some basic things you can do at home. For sure, blood pressure. You could definitely get a blood pressure cuff. You could buy it on Amazon. You could buy it from like a clinic, anywhere, from the store, just to get a basis of where you're at. Also, something you can do is kind of track your weight. I mean, having a scale at home, just seeing where you're at, what the trend is like over time, to see if you're, doing well, if you're getting too much weight, or all that stuff. Or if going shopping, buying clothes, you can even test your waist circumference too, to see kind of what your trend is as well. But it depends on the person. Sometimes people look at themselves, because you see yourself every day, so you can't really see that change. But when other people kind of see you and haven't seen you for a couple months or so, or even a year, they can definitely tell a difference. So it's a good way to get a sense of where you're at. That's for sure.
Okay, thank you, Brother Brian. Another question, I guess, follow up for that. Like, I know, is there a specific time or a specific day, like in the morning, or how often should we like kind of keep our blood pressure or our weight at home?
Well, in terms of a specific time or when you should check it, I mean, generally checking it every now and then would be nice, especially if you go on your regular checkups. But also, if you're having certain symptoms like you're having headaches, you're not really feeling well, or if you haven't been up in tune with your house, a good way to kind of have a checkpoint per se. And in terms of specific time of day, usually, obviously, if you're after a workout, your pressure might be a little bit elevated or so, or if you're not as hydrated, so that can also help raise your pressure as well because your body's not compensating. So depending on the time of day when you check your pressures and all, it does vary because everyone has different bodies, so it's up to you when to check it, but also to have a sense of how to keep track. So in the clinic, you usually tell people, hey, just because you measured 140 at home one time, that doesn't mean you have hypertension, because per guideline you kind of have to check it multiple times between a certain amount of time to
Mhm.
be officially diagnosed with that. So that's for sure.
All right. On the topic of blood pressure, what is blood pressure? What does it tell us? And what is like the healthy range we should kind of keep an eye on?
Yeah, so blood pressure definitely gives a marker to tell you how your heart is working, how much work does it take to bring your blood all around, how hard it has to pump to get that blood to other parts of your body, right? So that top number, we call it systolic blood pressure, just tells us how much blood is pumping with that one contraction, right? And then that diastolic, when the blood is coming back to a certain chamber of the heart, and that can give us a kind of reading and range of how hard your blood pressure is working.
And what is like a healthy range that we should be at?
Yeah, and per guideline, the typical 120 over 80. But some guidelines are kind of slowly changing and all. But if you take a nitty gritty, it's like a 118 over 70 something. But usually people try to aim for 120 over 80. But the thing is, we have to realize as we age, our blood vessels tend to not really be, the word we call is compliant, meaning how flexible your arteries, your veins can be as you age, because you tend to not have as much elasticity per se. So, with that being said, so depending on your age and the comorbidities or other things that are going on in your life, or the different conditions that you have, can affect or skew that. So when we kind of go for an ideal blood pressure about 120 over 80, and then when we go up by tens, that's when we call it hypertension with the stages, right? Stage one, 130, stage two, 140, et cetera, et cetera. So we try to aim for that magic number 120 over 80, but I know certain guidelines are changing over time, but it's good to know where you're at, but also realize that everyone's different, and we have to keep in mind of the comorbidities or conditions that we have. And also the different point in time, right? Like I could be yapping and talking all day. I could have a heavy meal. Oh man, I feel like my blood pressure's through the roof. Like I have headaches, all that. So
Yeah, and I guess that's the importance of actually talking to your provider, right? Or having yearly checkups so that you'll have a trend, so you know kind of like what your normal is, because and like have like a baseline so that when you check your blood pressure on your own, you can be like, well, that's around my normal, since things like fluctuate, right, over time or over days and whatnot. All right. Next question about blood sugar and A1C. So I guess first question is like, what's the importance of checking your blood sugar?
the importance of checking your blood sugar is just to know, especially we call it HbA1c. It's that marker that kind of tells us what your average blood sugar is over 3 months, right? Because say I just ate a hefty meal, I just had boba milk tea, or call it boba milk tea, like, Australia per se,
It's
or
bubble tea and East Coast, right?
bubble tea coast. We say boba on the west, so
Yeah.
Also, I mean, the weather here is kind of chilly. It's getting there. It's December. I'm trying to shovel snow out my front door. The only thing I've shoveled was sand back in San Diego. That's the only thing I've shoveled. So I don't know how y'all do it with the weather here, but I'm trying. But with the blood sugar aspect, just having that A1C checkup kind of gives you that marker of where you're at, because sometimes it's a little bit of a silent killer per se, because At times, you won't really feel the symptoms at first, but once you get to that point, it might be a little bit too late. But, typically us as, average 20, 30-year olds or whatever, it's not like we're going to be pricking our, finger all the time for blood sugar, but usually the symptoms that we experience kind of can telltale, if something's kind of going on in my body. I might have to get it checked out. But per se, after eating a heavy meal, I mean, obviously your blood sugar is going to be high, right, through the roof. And then after you're sleeping, might be low because you're not eating. So a good range for A1C for people. So we always try to remember that range, 5.7 to 6.4. That's pre-diabetes. So anything under than that is quote normal. I don't like to use the word normal, to be honest, because is anyone normal really? I don't know. But and then above 6.4 will be classified as diabetes and type 2 diabetes per se, because usually type 1, that's more autoimmune, that's people usually born with that, etc. But for the purposes of this, type 2 is kind of what we're talking about. But that range of 5.7 6.4 as pre-diabetes, and then whatever's lower, that's normal. Above that is diabetes.
All right. And the question or the next important thing that we should kind of keep an eye on, I think, is cholesterol levels. So we have HDL, LDL, and triglycerides. So which one should we kind of keep an eye on, or what are the types of cholesterol markers we should, get screened?
Yeah, this is a definitely complex question. I've taught biochemistry and physiology of nutrition back in university, and it's all these acronyms like LDL, the HDL, this and that. So I like to tell people, hey, low is bad. LDL is kind of how I phrase it. High is good. So that LDL is a good marker to indicate, hey, there's a lot of plaque buildup. This is kind of the bad cholesterol. Oof, I might have to get worked up or change my habits. HDL, I call it like the recycler, right? It kind of helps remove that LDL and kind of recycle it throughout the body. So, and then triglycerides are those fats in the blood. And that kind of also telltales us to, that links us to the metabolic health or the state that you're in. And in terms of what matters most, I'd say I'd prefer to look at LDLs more and then also triglycerides, because some people might have some familial disorder where their triglycerides are just through the roof, but those are fairly rare. But it's kind of a good marker when we say we're going to check our cholesterol, okay? Because LDL and triglycerides kind of drive the more of that cardiovascular risk or problems with the heart and arteries, and it gives us that bigger picture, that's for sure. And I know, for us, we, depending on what culture you're from, but I know in the East, we like to eat our fried foods, like heavy meals, high fat and all. So kind of have to be mindful of what we eat. So mindful eating is also important too.
Yes, I think even Filipino dishes can be quite difficult to have in moderation.
We
And
have all that crispy pata and lechon, so
Yeah, that's good. Yeah.
yeah, okay. Next marker. About how about BMI and waist circumference, which is more helpful for assessing a health risk?
Yeah, the BMI versus waist circumference. That's always a talk of the town. As a trainer, I've been doing it for 5 years. So many clients, they would ask me, hey, Brian, like my doctor said my BMI is like 25, 26. Like I'm overweight, but I'm keep on working out. And I don't know, like, am I doing something wrong? But, I always tell them, usually BMI isn't a marker, because if you look at Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, he's a famous guy, but he's very muscular, but he would be classified as obese, right? But he's not obese. It's just that range. It's like a predictable marker of like, okay, like kind of get a sense of where the person is, if we take an average person per se. But I'd say waist circumference is more indicative of the predictor of heart disease and all. So it's that, if you measure the waist, like if you go shopping, I don't know how the ladies do it, but I know for us guys, it's like, hey, I'm a waist 32, 34. So that's kind of an indicator, and the best way to tell you how much like inner fat you have. We call it the visceral fat around the organs. Good predictor of heart disease and diabetes than just BMI alone. But of course, we take the whole picture of the person, because height and weight, of course, we have to take into account. But for the guys, for us, 40 less than 40 is ideal. It's kind of a good indicator. Okay, that's okay for me. And then for the females, 35 inches. But if you want to go centimeters, I think it's like 100, 102 for men, and then 88 for the women. Okay, so 35 for ladies, 40 for the men. Okay, if you like to get a predictor or kind of get a sense of where you're at, that's for sure.
Good to know. And I guess the last stat or key health stat we can talk about is resting heart rate, and sleep quality. How do these reflect our health and stress?
Oh, let me tell you, sleep. Man, that's a privilege. I haven't reached 8 hours in a long time. So that's for sure. I just finishing up 60 hours in emergency department right now. So I'm definitely stressed. That's for sure. But there's good stress, bad stress. But I'd say a lower resting heart rate for sure is a good indication of how fit you are. And a good indicator, heart rate velocity or variability, meaning how well your heart can adapt to stress. So obviously, if I'm sleeping, a lower heart rate makes sense. So that tells me like, hey, my cardiovascular fitness is pretty good. But if your resting heart rate tends to be through the roof and you're just chilling, I mean, that's kind of not that great, because then that means you're in a high stress mode all the time, and that can have poor health outcomes. That's for sure. So when it comes to preventative medicine and reactive medicine, it's good to be in tune and be proactive with your health rather than just reacting to it, saying, "Hey, I have these symptoms. Now let me go get checked up," but it's kind of too late, right?
Yes. Speaking of like being proactive instead of reactive, I guess we could start with age groups, like what we should be concerned about in certain age groups, correct? So the younger that you kind of are on top of things, the more I guess you get a handle on preventing like worse conditions as we get older. Is that like a fair statement, Brother Brian?
Yeah, that's for sure. Because as you age, certain hormones like your metabolism goes down, so you tend to gain weight a little much easier. Blood pressure and all. It all varies as you age. Now I'm getting like back pain, knee pain, but I don't know if that's just me doing deadlifts at the gym or barbell squats. But that's or lifting heavy patients. I don't know, or lifting the burden, lifting the load for the team. So,
So let's talk about our 20s, right? That's long gone for me. But anyways, what baseline tests people in their 20s should consider or should keep an eye on?
oh, Abby, you look 20 for me too.
No.
Talking about you got a good skincare routine. Something's going on. You're doing something right for sure. But definitely 20s. I mean, just your general things like blood pressure. Dentists like get 6 months, every 6 months, twice a year. Vision exams, especially for me because I'm blind, so I can't really see. Um, Good skin checks if your provider does that well, and
Mhm.
cholesterol for sure. And then monitoring your health by exercise, sleep. Try not to smoke as much. Eat well.
Smoke at all. We shouldn't be smoking at all. Even vaping and all that stuff. So, like try to like those, I guess, environmental things we should be conscious for. Um, and what habits in our 20s could set the stage for long-term health?
Definitely consistent sleep, that's for sure, which I don't have. So regular exercise,
Mhm.
if you go vigorous and intense, 3 times a week is not bad, 2 to 3. But if you want to do like short bursts, like 20, 30 minutes, just moving, just doing movements at home, taking a walk, maybe 4 to 5 times. I can go very in detail of exercise physiology, but we only have a limited time, so I won't go there. But consult me if y'all ever need anything. And then just knowing how to cope with stress, so stress management skills, knowing how to
Mhm.
do those and how to prevent that, doing things that you like to do, right? Because I know usually in the younger folks, depression, anxiety is kind of high, especially this day and age. So it's something definitely we have to address.
Yeah. Okay. Now let's go on to our next decade in our 30s. So, in addition to what we take a consideration in our 20s, what are additional screenings or other screenings that become more important as we are entering our 30s?
Yeah, so every decade is going to be different, right? So we always, as physicians, we go by in the United States, the USPSTF, that's the United States Preventive Services Task Force. I hope I got the acronym right. But that's usually in our board exams and all. So we always go by those guidelines. I know there's so many guidelines from different associations, American College of Obstetrics, Gynecology. We have the Thyroid Association, the Heart Association. So USPSTF is kind of more that general. So for the 30s, the same thing, like cholesterol, blood pressure. But most importantly, the blood sugar now, we'll kind of have to keep an eye on that, the A1C, especially if you have family history or if you're overweight. Also, thyroid checks, American Thyroid Association recommends to check it at age 35 and then every 5 years. But, depending on your symptoms, so if you're 20 and you're feeling fatigued or low mood, probably you might have to check your thyroid because if you have low thyroid hormone, you might have those symptoms, right? And then, of course, mental health screening. So,
Yes. Now let's go on to the next decade. We're getting a little older in our 40s. So what additional screenings people in their 40s should consider or should get?
yeah, so 40 is that highlight. So especially for the women, the ladies, mammograms, we usually start screening at 40, and we do that every 2 years up to the age of 74. I was just in Elmhurst, Queens, doing a clinic, was educating all the ladies about that 40 to 74, because after 74, there's not much utility to screen at that point. So we always take benefit and risk of the screening. And I actually did an INCRadio back in San Diego about breast cancer screening, and it's actually not recommended to do self checks anymore because there's a lot of false positives. So it's important to go to the clinic for official mammogram screening. Glaucoma as well is important, especially if you have risk of diabetes in the family, etc. And some changes we can be aware of is the hormonal shifts, right? Metabolism slows down, muscle mass starts to decline. So I always tell the people getting older, resistance training is the key to prevent further breakdown of your muscle. That's for sure.
Yes, it's the start of additional screenings and testing for all as we get older. Now we're going to the next decade, the 50s. Fabulous 50s, right?
Fabulous 50s, yes.
So what other tests are being recommended for people in their 50s?
Now in the 50s, now we're kind of going for colon cancer screening. I know the guidelines now, they kind of
Mhm.
changed actually to 45. So it's getting younger, kind of indicates like what the Western culture is like. Higher rates of colon cancer, and that's kind of not good. So it kind of tells you about the culture in the Western countries. So 45, usually 40, slowly kind of getting younger and younger. And then we try to screen every, I'd say, about 5 years. But it depends. If you have a relative that had an issue or cancer, then you kind of have to do screening 10 years before. Like, say, my uncle got 44, got cancer, then I have to screen at 34, right? But then it can go a little more specific with the special diseases. But usually 45 is kind of where we're starting, 40, 45 for colon cancer screening. Bone density screening is good, especially for the, as you get older. Um, and of course your routine cholesterol, blood sugar, blood pressure checks. Okay.
So as we get older, more screening tests. And I know it can get overwhelming, but this is, preventative care, so that we can detect it earlier so that, you can live longer. And I guess the last decade that we will discuss about screenings are the 60s and above. I know like after 70s, like they, as Brother Brian mentioned, that they don't recommend certain screenings because again, risk versus benefit and whatnot. But as we get to our 60s, what screenings should be prioritized during that age group?
Yeah, last decade here. So definitely some screenings like hearing tests, right? I know a lot of us love to go to concerts, so we call age-related hearing loss presbycusis. But typically for the people like in occupational hazards or loud, workplaces or going to concerts, have to check your hearing on both sides. Sometimes people talking to you and I'm not understanding what you're saying because I can't hear you. Fall risk for sure, because the frail adults, they're higher risk of bleeding. Bone density screening for sure around DEXA scan, dual X-ray, absorptionometry. I'd say about 65 is a good time to check. But then if you have signs that you're a little more frail, they might do a little sooner, and then continue with your eye and dental screenings and the cancer screening. I'm doing a project research right now, systematic review about cancer screenings in the Filipino population, and it comes to show there's a lot of stigma and fear because it's more of our culture is, oh, I don't want to know, so I'll just live my life, versus I don't want to know sooner, and then my quality of life goes down. So we call that lead time bias. So say a person, like, at the end of life they're gonna die at like 89, but if you find out early at 35, I mean, probably this person will die at 89. But if I find out like at 80, well, you're still 89. So it's just more of when to know and if you want to know. So it's kind of an interesting feature from different cultures. But it's definitely good to get screening and maintain your health and checkup. But we like we mentioned, benefit and risk, like the utility of screening, like will that change how I live my life? So
Yes. Thank you, Brother Brian. I know it's like a crash course for each decade.
it's a
But
lot.
yes, obviously talk to your healthcare providers about your screenings and what you should do for, each individual concerns that you have. So let's bring it all together. If someone wants to start today about screenings, what's the simplest or easiest place that we can begin?
Oh, that hands down, that'd be blood pressure because that's something everyone can measure. One point. If it will come a close second or first, then weight would be a good indicator as well. But blood
Mhm.
pressure is usually the one that people can do and can start.
And it's like the least I feel invasive, it's just, it's kind of tight, but I mean, it's not like pricking your finger or getting blood drawn. So it's like, I guess the easiest non-invasive marker that we can check and even do it on our own and in our own time. Well, thank you, Brother Brian. We appreciate all the wealth of knowledge that you talk to us. I know it's a lot for those who are listening, but you can always review and watch the video and our episode again. But before we go, any shout outs or greetings that you have?
Well, it's like from my old locale, shout out San Diego, shout out Australia, shout out New Orleans. And the little locales that I've kind of come across my journey. So I've been around the world, that's for sure. So I got to shout out Kentucky, Tennessee, Texas for sure, Florida. So I've been around.
Well, thank you, Brian, for the shout outs and for joining us in our episode today. If Kuya Tech can play our next bumper, which is What We Doing, and we'll get right into it. All right. What we doing, New York? What we doing today? All right. Well, for one thing, I know everyone is doing the general cleaning. So shout out to everyone who tuned into our episode today. And of course, also helping out in the general cleaning. Still time. I'm pretty sure everyone is still cleaning. So if you haven't done your part, make sure you do your part and clean. And I'm looking at Sister Mika because she's still upstairs. So right after this, she'll probably go downstairs and do some cleaning. So, and we're gonna go on to our shout outs and greetings from our YouTube live chat, Sister Mika.
Thank you. Yeah, shout out to everyone who's doing general cleaning. I hear the vacuums, I hear the talking outside the office. So great job, everyone. So we'll read quickly some of our greetings. Sister Yasmin Rafanan says, happy listening Paul from Forest Hills, New York. Sister Joyanne, happy Saturday from the local congregation of Belmore. Um, what else? Brother Leon, Syracuse representing. Kuya Warren, hello to all. Greetings from the local of Forest Hills. Carl Robert says hello to all brethren, especially to all the brethren in LIC in Woodside. Kadeen Parada says happy viewing, everyone. Greetings from Rockland. We have a lot of different greetings. Sister Zoe says hello, Brother Brian. And Karik Adalia says, greetings to all brethren, Boston, Londonderry, and Portland. Greetings. Thanks to all who helped in our chapel general cleaning today. We have a bunch more. And thank you, everyone who tuned in. Let's close it out.
Yes, that's all for today's show. Thank you for tuning in. And again, thank you to the church administration for giving us a platform like this to share and speak about important topics like these. So, greetings to our beloved Executive Minister, Brother Eduardo V. Manalo, and our current Deputy Executive Minister, Brother Angelo Arano Manalo. Also, greetings to our INC radio station manager, Brother Wally Tarai, and our executive producer, Kuya Manley and Daya.
And of course, we would also like to greet our District Minister, Brother Sheridan Santos, our Assistant District Minister, Brother Neil Patrick Omelda, and our CFO Advisor, Brother Jason Flores. We hope this conversation has helped you understand that staying healthy isn't about perfection, it's about awareness. So remember that the goal isn't to fear those checkups that we've been putting off or haven't been thinking about, but to use them as tools, simple steps that help us keep ahead of potential problems and help us be in charge of our long-term health. So next week is our season 1 finale episode. So we're at the end of season 1. It's been a journey this season. So make sure to come back again next week on Saturday at 11:30 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time. That's Sunday 12:30 a.m. Philippine time right here on How You Doin. See you everyone.